let's start the main program, and it's time to learn about LOFA. We have prepared a video to introduce ourselves. Let's watch the video.
In 1964, we were established on the foundation of the spirit of mutual assistance, helping each other in difficulties and sharing good things. We share a history of hope that we have created together, one that will endure beyond the present day as we build the future. Now, we are moving to become a world-class local finance specialized organization. From the first local finance specialized organization in Korea, we are working to become the best local finance specialized organization, embracing all local governments nationwide. We are always with you, whenever and wherever you are. We have helped restore hope in disasters and emergencies by maintaining reasonable membership fees, ensuring the financial stability of local governments. By returning the accumulated reserves of our mutual aid business, we have created various forms of the member support business to contribute to local community development. As a think tank in the fields of local finance, accounting, and contracting, we have further enhanced our professionalism through our more specialized and systematized local accounting and statistics business. In a country where everyone lives well, our vibrant neighborhood forms a beautiful landscape created through our regional revitalization promotion business. Our fair and objective feasibility study supports sound local finance through planned financial investment. Additionally, we have supported various international events with profits generated from our out-of-home advertising business and facilitated an ideal out-of-home advertising culture. We have diligently and consistently fulfilled our social responsibility to you. Now, we are moving forward into a broader world. Beyond being the first and the best in Korea, toward a global local finance specialized organization. Wherever you seek to go, we will vigorously take that path. For a better future, leaders of the Future Advanced LOFA. We are the Korea Local Finance Association.
안녕하십니까. 세계 각국에서 한국을 찾아주신 공무원 여러분, 만나 뵙게 되어 매우 반갑습니다. 그리고 저희 한국지방재정공제회 방문을 진심으로 환영합니다. 저는 지방회계통계본부장 장동욱입니다. 한국지방재정공제회는 핵심 사업인 공제사업 외에도 지방재정과 회계, 계약 분야의 싱크탱크로서 전문성을 인정받고 있으며 국내를 넘어 세계적인 수준의 전문기관으로 나아가기 위한 발걸음을 힘차게 내딛고 있습니다. 그 일환으로 서울대와 서울시립대에서 공부를 하고 계시는 여러분께 작지만 뜻깊은 첫 번째 글로벌 지식공유 특강을 준비하게 되었습니다. 비록 짧은 시간입니다만은 오늘 강의가 이 자리에 참석하신 각국의 공무원 여러분들과 우리 공제회만의 지식 공유와 이해 정진에 보탬이 되기를 희망합니다. 이번 특강을 위해 깊은 관심과 지원을 아끼지 않으셨던 이인재 이사장님께서는 불가피한 사정으로 오늘 함께 하지는 못하셨습니다만 여러분에 대한 깊은 감사와 환영의 뜻을 영상으로 남겨 있었습니다. 부디 이해를 부탁드립니다. 한국에 계시는 동안 건강하게 잘 지내시길 바라며 여러분과의 소중한 인연을 간직하도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Although our chairman, Dr. Lee In-jae, couldn't be here due to an important prior schedule, he genuinely wished to meet our distinguished guest. That's why he recorded a video message. Let's watch the video clip.
Good morning, distinguished guests and esteemed government officials from around the world. I am Dr. Lee In-jae, the chair of Local Finance Association in Korea. On behalf of all the family in LOFA, I extend a heartfelt welcome to all of you eagerly studying at SNU and University of Seoul. LOFA was established 60 years ago, which in Oriental area passed one cycle of sexagenary composed of 10 celestial stamps by 12 zodiac signs. LOFA has become the foremost and specialized organization dedicated to fiscal soundness of all local governments and development of local finance in Korea. Over the past 6 decades, LOFA has enhanced the competitiveness of the mutual aid business, fostering stable asset management, advancing local finance and accounting practices, and nurturing the out-of-home advertising industry. Notably, in addition, by conducting feasibility studies for local investment projects, LOFA has institutionally enhanced the financial soundness of local governments. Continuously evolving and innovating itself, LOFA now aims to become globally recognized local finance specialized organization beyond the territory of Korea. While our educational initiatives have been centered on domestic local government officials, today's launch of our first global knowledge sharing program for you marks a small but very meaningful step in our pursuit of global excellence. Through this program, LOFA would like to show best practices on the local finance system, autonomy, accountability, institutions, and case studies of public investment management. Although today is a short period of time, I hope this program will foster meaningful exchanges between LOFA and you from diverse nations, consequently leading to mutual understanding and greater cooperation. When you return to your home countries, I hope you will remember LOFA as a good memory about our efforts for the development of local finance in and out of Korea. Once again, I extend my sincere appreciation to each of you for your participation in today's knowledge sharing program. Finally, I hope you will enjoy the remaining time and further your academic journey in Korea. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Now, it's time to meet one of Korea's experts in local government finance, Professor Suho. I'm honored to introduce him for his professionalism in these areas. He's a professor at Sungkyunkwan University, a renowned university in Korea like Seoul National University and University of Seoul. Professor Bae has conducted research on the theory of local fiscal management, environmental governance and policy, Oriental Eastern philosophy, and governance, etc. I believe this lecture will be a meaningful opportunity for all of you. Additionally, if you have any question about the topics, please utilize the Q&A session. It will enhance the lecture for everyone here. Now, let's welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Suho. I'm teaching at the Sungkyunkwan University. I used to teaching in San Francisco State University, and I moved in Korea 2009. So when I was in the United States, I was teaching public budgeting and finance and research methodology, environment policy, most of my research major areas. By the way, how many you stays here in Korea? Oh, your master's course. So which years are you in? Which semester? So second semester. So you have 2 more semesters then. 1 more semester. Oh, okay. All right. Good. I used to teaching also KOICA program in Sungkyunkwan University a few years ago, and I also used to teaching in local finance. You know, I'm so happy to see you guys, and we have talked about the Korean local finance. So we have a lot of achievements at the same time. We have very challenging issues. Especially, I would like to talk about the fiscal autonomy and also at the same time how to secure fiscal accountability in this country, especially in context of local government. I would like to presentation about brief history of local self-government in this country. And also, I'm going to move local government finance in this country. And I talked about local fiscal autonomy and fiscal conditions. And we talked about the trade-off between local autonomy and fiscal accountability in this country, and also in general as well. I think those dilemma can be applied to your countries as well. And then I briefly, probably University of Seoul already knows about some issues in Seoul metropolitan government, and then some major issues in this country in terms of local government finance, and also what will be lessons and implications for your country and also our country as well. During my presentation, if you have questions, please raise hands, and then you can ask anytime, okay? You already know the map of Korea, right? So I don't talk about more of Korea. Korea has adopted a unitary system, which means that power is originated from a central government. Without central government, you cannot imagine the existence of local government. That's basically the fundamental principle of a unitary system. It's quite different tradition from federalism, right? At the same time, Korea used to be one centralized power almost 1,000 years. It's a long tradition of centralized power, okay? So king and central governments always try to extend their power to reach the local government and local areas. So we have a strong tradition of statism and centralization. After the independence from the Japanese colony for 36 years, the Republic of Korea was established on August 15th, 1948. Okay? And the local self-government system was introduced 1952. Actually, at the time, we are in the middle of the Korean Civil War. Right? So in the middle of the Korean Civil War, we adopted local self-government system. And however, after General Park Chung-hee's military coup in 1961, local elections was abolished and local autonomy was postponed. Under the argumentation is that we postponed local autonomy and local elections until the reunification of Korean Peninsula. Right? That's the General Park Chung-hee's, at the time, they imposed that idea. So under the authoritarian rule since 1961, local governments just simply functioned as the implementers of the policies and programs which were made in central governments, actually, Therefore, from 1961 to 1991, The revival of local autonomy has been the symbol of democratization and democratic society. So when I was in college, we always argue about democracy, but at the same time, local autonomy. Why? Because the local autonomy is kind of symbol of democracy as well, especially in this country. Okay? So the local self-government system revived since 1991 local elections for local councils, and we also local elections for mayors in 1995. I'm sorry, and since the 1995, the local elections for the mayor, Korea is now jumping into the stage of the local autonomy, but we are still in the progress. Okay, we have a lot of with good experience and also bad experience as well. But still, we have very tight control local governments and finance by the central governments. I would like to introduce several data. For the local autonomy, for the local self-government, we have 4 key components. We should be satisfied these 4 key components. First of all, the local local authority to make the laws. The second one, local authority to organize itself. We call self-organization. A local authority to administrate itself, and the local fiscal autonomy. In order to for the full local autonomy, we satisfy these 4 elements and components. Okay. In Korea, local government, they have the make the ordinances, but the power of the making ordinances is the guideline by the central government. Okay, you cannot make any ordinances. And second of all, yes, they have also some limited authority to organize itself, and also they have local authority to administrate itself, and especially finance aspect. Local fiscal autonomy is still in the progress, but still far away from my point of view. This is the structures of the local government. We have central government and 2 levels of the local government, the upper level government and lower level government. Upper level government, you know that Seoul, capital metropolitan city, Sejong special self-governing cities, 6 metropolitan cities, 8 provinces, Jeju special self-governing provinces. Under the upper level, we have low levels governments, autonomous districts, and counties and cities. Okay. This is South Korea, actually here. Our finance system, we have central finance, local education finance, basically. Okay, so local education finance is separated from central and local finance. However, it's closely related to each other. Okay, 2 types of account, the general account and special account, created in this country when the special goods and services need to stable funding and to need to be financed by central certain revenue sources, or local enterprises such as waterworks and wastewater treatment and subways and so on. Okay. In the long time in this country, we adopted single entry bookkeeping system and the cash basis system. I went to the United States for the master's and Ph.D. degree in 1999. In this country, we have a huge debate about it, about how to introduce or adopt double entry bookkeeping system and accrual-based accounting system. They had trial and error by a long time period. Eventually, we adopted double entry bookkeeping system and accrual-based accounting system in 2005. There are 2 types of local revenues: own source revenues and dependence revenues. Dependence revenues mainly financial support from central government. Revenue sharing program. Sometimes we call local shared tax or local allocation tax. Categorical grant, okay, and the local tax and non-tax revenues under the own source revenues. especially non-tax revenues is another major revenue sources for cities and metropolitan cities. And this is in 2023, we have intergovernmental fiscal relations here. Oops. Here, the tax, national tax and local tax is about 80% of total tax revenues is go to the central government. Approximately 20% taxes go to local governments. But eventually, huge money of the central government money is transferred to the local government under the name of revenue sharing tax, revenue sharing program, and character grant. Okay, I'm going to show you data and some details about it. And also, central government is providing local education subsidies. Huge amount of money is go to the local education purposes here. So in 2008, you see that here, this is local revenues. It's about 28% of the local revenues is from local tax. And in altogether, dependence revenues from central governments is more than 50%. Okay? 18% comes from revenue sharing tax, and 38% is from character grant. I'm gonna talk about later the difference between these two types of program. Here, revenue sharing programs and character grant. Local governments, they make decisions where this money is spent for. Okay, they have free will to spend the money. But character grant is the earmarked. It should be spent for special functions and purposes. Local tax structure is so complicated, right? But still complicated, I think, compare other countries, especially the United States. We have made, the sincere effort to combine different tax items. In 2012, we have 16 local tax items to combine to 11 items, right? And there are two types of local taxes. We call them ordinary tax, objective tax. So ordinary tax, as that tax you usually understand about it. But objective tax is earmarked for special purposes, especially in local government. Here, the education and regional resource facilities. But those objective tax is only available for upper level government, not low level of government. All right, this is the local tax structures. You see that here. We have 11 tax items, and they have province tax and city or local tax, county tax. I'm sorry, city or general city we're talking about, or county tax is ordinary tax. We have tobacco consumption tax, restaurant tax, local income tax, property tax, and automobile tax. Okay. The others are provincial tax, acquisition tax, and what is major? Local consumption tax, right? This is these two major local tax revenues. Here also property tax, and also local income tax as well. All right, but metropolitan cities, including Seoul, there are more tax items they have. Autonomous districts like Gangnam-gu, autonomous districts has only two taxes. Here, registration license tax and property tax. Okay, but in the Seoul metropolitan government, they adopted in 2008. They have a special property tax sharing program. I'm going to introduce later on, because the huge regional disparities between rich districts and poor districts, like Gangnam-gu and Gangbuk-gu. As you see here, the major revenue source is acquisition tax, local income tax, local consumption tax, property tax. Okay, these are these are four major local tax revenue sources. And you can see it here, Seoul and different local governments has a slightly different compositions. Let me introduce about each items very briefly. First of all, acquisition tax. It is the largest tax revenue source in this country for the local government. It was introduced as local tax in 1952. There are huge jump in 1952, right? In Korean constitutions in 1948, they actually introduced local self-government system in future. At the time, we have big competition between liberal side or democracy side, South Korea and North Korea in communism. They very high competition each other. So they sometimes assembled each other right, at the same time. So we introduced a lot of very innovative policies and programs at the time, all right? Like a social democracy concept introduced in Korean, South Korean constitutions and so on and so on. So self-government system actually implemented in 1952 during the Korean Civil War, as I already mentioned about it. And also they introduced the acquisition tax as well, okay? This tax is levied on the persons purchasing real estate, like including land, buildings, motor vehicles, trees and boat, aircraft, heavy equipment, memberships for golf clubs, condominiums, or health clubs, etc., or acquiring those items through inheritance. Okay. And local income tax, it was introduced in 2010 during the Lee Myung-bak administration as a new effort to secure local own source revenues and improving local fiscal autonomy. Okay. It is levied as 10% of individual income tax or business income tax. Local consumption tax, it was introduced at the same time, the securing local own source revenue source at the same time invigorating regional economy. Okay. It is levied as the surtax of value added tax. So now we this year about 25%. So we have extended. It is starting 11% to 15%, 20%, and now it's 25.3%. Okay. The property tax, it was introduced in 1961. Okay. So it traditionally considered as the most important tax revenue source, especially low-level local government. Okay. It's levied on the basis of standard value for real estate, buildings, houses, and shift. But standard value is not calculated on the basis of the market value. Okay? So we have a certain formula there. The standard value is calculated under a certain formula. But the problem was that the huge gap between market value and standard values. Right? That's the big issues in this country. I think still the problem. For example, if you have a small house in the Gangnam district, Gangnam-gu, and if you have a large house in the Gangbuk-gu, about 10, 15 years ago, you have to pay more taxes. You have a large apartment compared to small, tiny condominium. We have slowly adjusting standard values into market values, but still we have the certain issues there. So motor vehicle tax, okay, and the local education tax. In 2001, this tax is transferred from national tax to the taxes for upper level, the government. So this tax is additionally levied on 7 local taxes, like acquisition tax, registration license tax, leisure tax, tobacco consumption tax, property tax, restaurant tax, motor vehicle tax. If you smoked, you contribute to local education tax levies. So I'm encouraging the smoking for these purposes. Okay, and this 7 local taxes. You have the additionally you pay local education tax as well. Another one is non-tax revenues. In the United States, 1970s, non-tax revenue sources dramatically increasing for the local government. The reason is that in 1970s in the United States, they have like tax revolt movement. City residents, they have against raising the local taxes. So local governments was in trouble to raising the revenues, their own revenues. So therefore they're looking at the non-tax revenues sources, such as like user fees, rent revenues, parking fees, right, and so on and so on. In Korea, this is another major source for the local government, especially cities and metro cities. Okay. And if regarding non-tax revenues, there are pros and cons. The positive side is that you can escape political debate, political arguments, and political costs, because you don't have to be passed through the local councils, right? It's much easier to get through political bargainings or the political troubles. But at the same time, it's not an equitable tax. It's not tax, but it's not equitable. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not you have to, wherever you have rich or poor, you have to pay at the same amount of tax, same amount of money, right? It's unequitable. This is another, they have pros and cons. At the same time, non-tax revenue is unstable. It's not a stable source, right? So if you see here, the non-local tax revenues be heavily concentrated in the metropolitan cities and general cities. Okay. The metropolitan cities is upper level government. The general cities is low level government, right? Let me move to central local fiscal relations. Sometimes we call fiscal federalism in the United States context. Federalism context we call fiscal federalism, but in unitary system we call central local fiscal relations. Right? Yeah, in Korea we adopted 2 major the system in the central local fiscal relations. One is the revenue sharing program. The other one is category grant. Okay, the revenue sharing programs is formally called local shared tax, or in English we translate it in local allocation tax. Okay. The purpose of this program is to equalize fiscal disparities among the local governments. Because you can imagine that, right? In Seoul and rural counties, huge financial disparities, right? And also try to reduce vertical imbalance between central governments and local government. As we already mentioned, that 80% of total tax revenues go to the central government, right? Only 20% is go to local government. By the law, 19.24% of national internal taxes it should be spent under the name of revenue sharing program. Here we have 2 types of revenue sharing program. It's a regular local shared tax and special local shared tax. But there is always issues in this program is a moral hazard problem. Local government perspective, you don't have to make additional effort. The money every year comes down from the central governments under the formula, right? You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to political bargaining. You don't have to find the new revenue items. You don't. It's automatically transferred from central to the local governments under the certain formula. We have a calculation. Computer automatically allocated for you. Okay. Therefore, local government, they don't have any incentives to saving the money, finding new sources, and so on. But typically, we call moral hazard problems. So this comes on. We could talk about how to secure financial or fiscal accountability in this country. Also, your country probably as well. Every country has the same confront with these problems. And let me talk about regular local share tax. It's about 97% of local share tax revenues. Okay, it is distributed on the basis of the standard financial need, like a size of population, the number of public employees, number of local council members, and number of the field offices, and total length of the paved road, and etc. Okay. To be frank with you, in the rural counties in this country, in the mountains area, financial self-reliance is only 15%, 15%. So those counties, rural counties, they could not support your salary without central financial support. Even rural counties cannot pay back for the salaries for the public employees, their government. The serious problems. So that's why we have these kind of local shared tax programs. Okay, so here the local government has free will to spend for their own purposes. Okay, there is no control. There is no guidelines by the local government. It is free money for the local governments. So for the academic terms is we call the soft budget constraint. Okay, the budget constraint is soft. Why? Because they're providing the free money. This related to moral hazard problems. The special local share tax, it is about 3% of local share tax revenues go to the special local share tax. So this money is distributed for special purposes of natural disaster recovery, building new public facilities, and reorganizing administrative districts. Okay, so it is so controversial, because the Ministry of the Interior and Safety, MOIS, they decide how much money, if you look at the 3%, 30% seems it's a small amount of money. No, it's not. It's a huge amount of money. But the Ministry of the Interior and the Safety, they decide those money, how to allocate it. Right? Of course, they have some natural disaster and public facilities and reorganizing the administrative district and so on, but still very politically controversial in this country. Okay. So in back to 10 or 20 years ago, it was huge political issues here in this country. But now we have a special committee. They have re-evaluated about how their money actually spent for it by the National Assembly. And also, I'm the committee member of this one, before we allocated those money for the local governments about it. Every time we review about, but I think still this is controversial, but it's slowly improving. But this is a good, sometimes very important. Why? This is function as a kind of rainy fund, emergency fund, right? For responding to natural disasters, they are providing money for quickly recovering and responding the situation in the local government. Okay, let me move to categorical grant. In categorical grant, sometimes we call matching grant. So it's matching like central government's providing 80%, local governments is matching 20%, and so on, so on. Okay. However, the matching rate is different. Okay. I was chance to participating about deciding the matching rate among the local governments. Usually in the Seoul metropolitan government, it's financially is healthy, right? Compare other local governments. Then matching is central governments providing 40%, and then Seoul metropolitan 60%. But if you go to rural area, then 80% from the central government, 20% is local government, and so on, so on. So it's the matching rate and amounts difference depending on types of public goods and services and financial conditions, as we already mentioned about it. However, we have some poker barrel politics about it. You guys heard about poker barrel politics, right? In local government, many local government, they have the office in Seoul here, especially near National Assembly, Yeouido. They have a lot of lobbying, right, to get this money about it. Every local newspaper, they like kind of advertised about it. Oh, our mayor, secure, or our National Assembly man secure this amount of money for character grant. That's this kind of political achievements about it, right? So huge about lobbyings. The original purpose of character grant is providing financial support for specific goods and services, which is really need for those local government, right? For elderly people or disabled people, right? Or like any activities and so on and so on. But local governments doesn't much care about it. Local governments about more money, always better, good, right? Well, another issues in this country here, the demand for social welfare spending is continuously increase over the decade. Okay, in Korea, Korean especially a divided country, right? So we have huge amount of money spent on national defense. Yes, the central government spent huge amount of money on national defense. But now slowly we are, much richer and richer. Then people want more services, right? Better services, more services, better services from the government. So according to 19th century scholar in Germany, Adolf Wagner, he's an economist in 19th centuries. He argues that as the national economy and also per capita income is increased, then size of government also increase. Why? Because people want more services and better services from the government, which means that the size of government is increasing. In Korea as well. So nowadays, huge amount of money is spent for social welfare. Okay, so here, 2028, the last year, almost 32% of the local total taxes spent for social welfare. Okay? And the other is 10% environment protection and 8% in logistics and transportation. So, this is a huge amount about it. But I'm gonna talk about later about it. Okay, central governments providing revenue sharing programs, money, and character grant to local governments in order to providing social welfare services. The problem is that they do not providing enough money. Okay, by the law, they require local government should provide those monies. Social welfare services. You should provide social welfare for elderly, disabled children, and single parents, and so on and so on. But they do not provide enough money, which means that they are financially stressed, fiscal stress, we call. Okay, we're gonna covering issues as well later. But however, Central government, especially MOIS, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety, they tightly control the local government, especially financial aspect. So they actually, in this country, local governments, they are not allowed to be borrowing the money without the permission of the MOIS. Okay, they should be get the permission first. So tightly control the local debt, the borrowings. So if you see here, only less than 9% of their revenues from the local debt. It's very low, right? Compare other countries. So the reason is that we have unitary system. Our country is basically unitary system. Central governments tightly control local borrowings and also financial management issues. Okay, very strongly control about it. So, okay, you got a local project or something ideas, then you have to submitting your proposal to the MOIS, and they carefully evaluate it, and then they say yes, then you can borrow the money. But those money mainly come from public source, like LOFA or like a pension system, or they have special fund. Okay, it's not directly borrowing from the market. That's only a small portion about it. Right? Well, I got a Ph.D. in North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Have you been there? But it's a very small town, campus town. The state of North Carolina, they also tightly control about it. Okay? They're very institutionally very diverse in the United States. In the state of North Carolina, like here, very tightly control about it. So the local government is submitting their proposal, and state review and evaluate it. They say yes, then local governments are borrowing the money from the market, okay, stock market, and bond. They issue bond. But state government guarantee if the trouble local government, and they guarantee to pay back in order to the interest rate law, right? But here in Korea, we don't have that kind of system. But still, if you issuing bond, very limited. But sometimes we through the local enterprises, we issue bond, but still the tightly controlled by the central government. However, we have local debt dramatically increased in 2008 because at the time, global financial crisis. And also, at the time, local government, 이명박 administration at the time, they allowed to local government to borrow the money. Right? So there are two steps policy. Central governments, they have very tight financial control. So they are more expanded public spending in the local level. But central level, they tightly control about it. What's happening here? The local debt is dramatically increasing at the time. All right. So, but here in Korea, we don't have a local bankruptcy system. So even though local governments are really trouble, you cannot announce the bankruptcy. Right? Why? Because we are a unitary system. The local government A was a financial trouble, then who is finally responsible for it? Central government. So it's about 10 years ago, in this country, seriously consider the adoption of local government bankruptcy, but eventually we have given up that idea. Okay, so we don't have a local bankruptcy. Okay, let me move to local fiscal autonomy here. This is a fiscal self-reliance rate. It's calculated the local own source revenues divided by total local revenues. Okay, if you look at a county government, county, rural county, is so low, right? In 2000, last year, it's less than 12%. The own source is only 12%. It's not enough for even the government public employee's salary, right? But at the same time, average in the country is 45%, right? So like the city or metropolitan area is much a better position than rural counties. But fiscal autonomy rate is another different calculation. Is that we have a revenue sharing program. I talked about it, right? Those money is a kind of free money for local governments, right? It's very similar to their own sources, right? So we calculating local own sources plus revenue sharing program revenues coming down from the central governments, and together is divided by total local revenues here, county, cities, now autonomous districts is much lower, but counties is much better, right? So much improved. That's another purpose of revenue sharing program, basically. All right. However, in the aspect of local fiscal autonomy in Korea, still I think it's still long way to go, basically. So in this country, it's a unitary system. The types of tax rate, tax base should be legislated by National Assembly as the form of the law, right? And the issuance of the local debt should be reviewed and approved by central government. I will mention about it. So also budget guidelines provided by the voice to the local government every year, and unfunded mandate imposed by central government. Unfunded mandate means that without funding, the central governments and National Assembly imposed local governments providing the services. Okay? And at the same time, matching grant it continues increasing less than a year. And another issue here on this one, in the central governments, they allowed a lot of local tax deductions and exemption as well. Okay, that's the central government about it. So I don't providing this actual amount, but that's what we call tax expenditure. The academic terms is tax expenditure is huge for the local government. Why? Because central governments, for the certain policy purpose, they are allowed to tax deductions and exemptions about it. That's I think so another big issues in this country, how to reduce the scope of the local tax deductions and exemptions. It's not their decision. Local government decided. Central government decided about it. Okay, let me move to fiscal conditions in the country. In Korea, in 2008, during the global financial crisis, some local governments was financially really trouble in this country. Like Yongin City, the ratio of debt to budget in 2012 is almost 40%, and Taebaek City is more than 80%. It's really trouble. Incheon was another trouble because at the time Incheon was preparing for Asian Olympic Games, which means that they built up the new sports facilities, and also they actually constructing subway line 2 in Incheon. So it was seriously financially under the serious financial crisis at the time. All right. So since then, the central government has intercept about it and tightly control those cities. So now it's recovering most of it, I think, recovering about it. Taebaek City, Tibet was located in the Gangwon province. It used to be coal industry, coal, but this coal is not anymore, right? So this is a trouble. Then they investing on the tourism, but it's not that successful at the time. So there was the trouble. And also in local tax structure, really trouble in this country, I think, especially in the local tax, is a large portion of local tax revenues is come from property-related tax, right? Property-related tax, actually acquisition tax, and property tax. Actually, acquisition tax is 24% last year, and the property tax is 14% last year. So altogether, what percent about it? More than 40% of tax revenues, local tax revenues come from property tax related tax sources. Why? Property related taxes are susceptible to fluctuations in the real estate economy. So nowadays in Korea, world economy really bad, right? So what happened here? Real estate economy is really bad. People doesn't sell and buy the house and apartment or the land. So what happened? Revenues for the local government is dramatically decreasing in this country because the local governments heavily depend upon property-related taxes. That's another issues in this country. And increasing demand for social welfare services. Have you guys heard about welfare magnet? Welfare magnet, magnet, right? Welfare magnet means that local governments providing social welfare services more and more, then people adjusted that kind of about it. So more. Okay? So the demand for the social welfare services is a continuous increase in the local governments in this country. And I already mentioned that central governments imposed local governments on unfunded mandate, especially in the era of the social welfare programs and services. Okay. At the same time, the local governments really problem in the bad fiscal management. They don't have expert at them. They do not have many financial aspects in the local government. So in effective and large scale of the public investment, the misuse of public monies, for example, in case of Seongnam, in each year, I'm not sure each year, but Seongnam, build up the very luxurious, the public city hall. This was financial trouble at the time, but now it's a city hall is using the public library, I believe. And the overestimation of the demand for services and so on. Since local autonomy in this country, in 1995, this year we mentioned about local elections for the mayor, right? Mayor or governor, during their terms, they want to show something about it. So large scale of public project, like buildings or landmark, right? Something like that. So they're wasting the money, actually. General Lee Sun-shin, his statue is located in the Gwanghwamun, right? So General Lee Sun-shin is a national hero against the Japanese invasion. So local government, they want to, their local governments related to Lee Sun-shin, General Lee Sun-shin. So many local governments build up the statue of the Lee Sun-shins, like Asan, and what is the Yeosu and Gwangyang and so on, right? Okay, let me look at the relationship or trade-off between fiscal autonomy and fiscal accountability. But it's in Korea and also other countries as well, more freedom in terms of finance aspect. Then the issue is there, how to secure financial accountability, responsibility. Okay, government, huge amount of money transfer from central government to the local governments under the name of revenue sharing program and character grant. How do you secure, how do you impose the financial responsibility to the local government? It's not easy at all. I'm not sure where you're from, in the local government or a central government, whatever. It's not easy. So there's some, I think there's some trade-off about it. If you have given some more freedom to the finance aspect to the local government, at the same time, it is hard. It's not easy to, oversight the financial activities and management about it. But in Korea, we have both problems. Fiscal autonomy is still low. At the same time, financial responsibility, I think, is still low. Why? This is between the transfer the money from the national or central to the local governments. A lot of free money there involved there, right? So fiscal accountability, the problem is the soft budget constraint. Soft budget constraint means that in the budget constraint, hard budget constraint means that if you want to increase your revenue, you should make effort, right? You're finding new items, revenue source, and also you're saving the money and so on and so on. But in this country, in a budget constraint, easy to expand because central government money provided about it. So we call the problem of a soft budget constraint. And moral hazard issues as well, right? They do not have strong incentives for the saving money and finding revenue sources and investing and managing financial resources in effective ways. Okay. Here in this country, then how to secure, how to achieve the financial accountability? In the three major ways to do that. Okay? There are three roles: central government role, local government role, and citizens role, or civic society. The central governments in this country, we have financial analysis evaluation system, and local investment and loan evaluation system, and early warning system of fiscal crisis. Like the boys carefully look at each local governments and where your financial status, like a red light or a green light, a yellow light, and blue light, either red light. They kind of warning system about it. And the amount limitation for the local debt. So based on their evaluation, they are allowed to the maximum amount of local debt. And the mid-term financial plans regularly reviewed and approved by central government. Local governments, of course, local councils, they review and oversight to their spending and revenues and spending and so on. Internal audit we have, and performance assessment and management, and external audit from like inspection, like it's called 감사원 in Korea, and the board of the audit and inspection in Korea, and we have a financial stabilization fund as well, and local finance information discourse. You have to open all financial information. Okay, so in your homepage, local government homepage, you should be open all information, financial information. And if you go, for example, if you go this site, you can see all Korean local government's financial information about it. And the citizens, they reporting the wastage of a budget. So you actually report our government is wasting the money, and they report it, and then like MOIS and other, organizations, and they look at it and step in the situation and request inspection and participating budgeting system. I'm gonna slowly talk about participatory budgeting system. So local citizens participating budgeting process. Traditionally budgeting and budgeting process is very closed system, right? Elite people like politicians and bureaucratic, they can't look at it. They'll never open them outside, right? But participatory budgeting system is open to every stage of the budgeting process. Right? It was first introduced in Bukgu, a district in Gwangju in 2003, and the Seoul Metropolitan Government adopted in 2012. The local finance law require nowadays, they adopted in 2011, all local governments adopted this system. Okay, this is the form of financial democracy. So under the principle, transparency and openness. Okay. But actually the participatory budgeting system is, they actually dealing with the portion of a total budget is very small. But the symbolic is so important, I think. Okay. In Korea, we don't adopted those fiscal institutions. We don't have the system of local bankruptcy and fiscal rules. The last year, a few years in central government, they are seriously consider adopting fiscal rules. Like they have a certain limitation of the budget, right? But still, we don't have. We're still under the consideration. We don't have tax and expenditure legislation or balanced budget rules. We don't have yet. But there's political debate nowadays in this country. Seoul metropolitan governments, we have 25 districts, and the capital of the Korea, and approximately 10 million people. We have mayor councils of the mayor council form of government, especially in Korea, local government, we adopted mayor council form, but strong mayor and weak council. Okay. For 25 autonomous districts, property tax is composed of more than 80% in the district tax revenues. 80%, more than 80%. So this is a Seoul metropolitan government, not, okay, own source is almost 58%. In 2008, Seoul adopted property tax-based revenue sharing program, which means that the Seoul metropolitan governments collect the 50% of property tax revenues from all district and distribute to those revenues across the 25 districts based on financial conditions, certain formula. So each district collect the other 50% of property tax revenues as their own source revenues. So which means the Seoul metropolitan government take 50% of the property tax revenues and they are redistributed across the 25 districts. So this Gangnam-gu and the Gangbuk-gu, the property tax revenue is, even though we adopted this system, still you see that the huge differences between Gangnam-gu and Gangbuk-gu. Let me move to major issues in local government finance. I think we are already covered from time to time during my presentation. We have huge vertical imbalance between national and local tax revenues. If you look at here, this is the portion of local tax revenues among the total tax revenues in this country. Okay, so it's in last year, local tax revenues about 22%. So which means that 78% of the total tax revenues is go to the central national government. And also, we have horizontal imbalance. I think this is not good data, not much, good data. But we already mentioned that, rural county is financially really trouble, right? It's about only less than 12% of their own source revenues. Our own source revenues only 12% among their revenues, total revenues. It's a huge problem. But compared with that, Seoul metropolitan governments much, much better, like almost 70%. Local governments has been increasing dependent upon central government financial support. 2008, 60%. Now, 2 years ago, 68%. In Korea, always they say that we have decentralization and local autonomy, and this is very important propaganda in this country. But if you look at the financial aspect, local governments more and more depend upon the financial support from the local government. Okay? But as I mentioned that my presentation, full range of the local autonomy, you have one of the key element is that fiscal autonomy, right? But it's not really true in this country, at least in the financial aspect. But some people argue that in financial revenues aspect, local governments heavily depend upon central government support. However, expenditure, spending aspect, they have more freedom. Therefore, they have fiscal autonomy. Okay? I'm not saying which argument is true or not, or correct or not, but still we have debating about it. Revenue side, we should be focused on revenue side or spending side. Yes, local governments nowadays in Korea, they have leverage about, right? So you guys maybe give me a comment about it. And we already some use about misused and overused public monies and bureaucratic behavior of the budget maximization, which means I already mentioned about it. Local governments, every local government, they have a sole office here. So just near to National Assembly, they want to more money from the central government, right? So huge, like lobbyings and debating, the bargainings and the access to the National Assemblymen and top politicians and so on and so on. Problem of soft budget constraint and moral hazard problem, I already mentioned about it. And central local fiscal relations, the fly paper effect phenomena in case of the local share tax. Fly paper effect basically, if you are rational person, if you are a rational person, then your income is increased. Your income increased by 100,000 once, then you spend more. But your income is decreasing exact amount, 100,000 once, then you are spending exactly decreasing same amount, right? That's your rational choice. Don't you think so? But fly paper effect phenomena is not that happen. Right? If you spend, okay, your free money, 100,000 once is your free money, then you spend this one. But you decreasing same amount of money, then you spend a little bit. Not that original point. You know what I'm saying? That kind of phenomenon we call fly paper effect. Local share tax is kind of free money, right? So government providing local share tax this year, this amount. Next year, decreasing that amount. But local government spending is not exactly decreasing same amount. You know what I'm saying? That's really a serious consideration for example, in the United States, really trouble. Okay, federal government or state governments providing money to the local government for those purposes, like disabled home care services. But local government, those money is not spent all those money for that purpose. They spend other purposes. That's called fungibility issues. Okay. That issue is really happening in Korea a few years ago. I don't know the kindergarten financing issues, right? But here the Hege accounting system is more details about more specific, and we have dealing in much effective way to deal with our fungibility concern. But according to academic research in Korea, central government tightly control the character grant, that's money, the earmarked the spending, but still we have the problems of fungibility concern about it. And poker barrel politics, we already mentioned about it, right? The poker barrel, what is the problem of the poker barrel politics is that resources is not effectively allocated, right? In effective way, money is allocated and spent for. During my presentation, I briefly introduced about Korean situation and Korean systems and what is the issues about it in this country. But what do we have sharing the same common issues in the context of local finance and central local fiscal relations? Okay. So far, do you have any questions? Oh, yeah?
My first question is about the tension between the central success in Korea. Because if we see history, many of the development plans of Korea were developed by the central government, and the application was really on the level of local sector. But what we see from history is that the success of this beautiful country was made majority from the central policies. So the idea of local authority is good for democracy, is good for politics, but for real, we don't see real success at the local level. So what is the evidence from academia of the development of local policy? Is it really successful or no?
First one, yes. I think Korean local central governments are very, very good job so far, right? But nowadays is time to thinking about we are now more diversity, more innovative. In our centralized policies, not can be successful anymore. Of course, central government role is still important, but in different ways, still important. Local governments kind of policy experiment, okay? So each local government, they have their own need, situation. They implement policy, and then a kind of policy experiment, right? So for example, I give you about free lunch program in this country for the school, children's. We have free lunch program. It is started in Gochang City. They actually started to free lunch program. The reason is that they are rural area. They used their agricultural product in their district, their city, to providing the lunch to the children. So invigorating regional economy and agricultural product like beef and vegetables and so on, right? That idea is become the national issues. So eventually what happening is all local governments providing free lunch programs, okay? So central governments cannot be pump up that idea. It is starting from the local government, actually. I think that's another free lunch program is another good example. And of course, there are pros and cons about it.
We can see, of course, there is an increase in social welfare. We can see that other expenditure is even more than social welfare, is even more than logistics, is even more than environment protection. I was wondering, what is this about this other expenditure? What is this concept about? If you maybe know, Professor, because it is more expenditure in this other expenditure concept that in social welfare than even in land and regional development.
the other expenditures, it's just minor part. We have categories more than, I think, 15 categories. So they're all together. That's why it seems it's the largest one, but it's not big portion about it. Less than like 5% and 6% and so on. So. However, if you look at it, logistics and transportation, environmental protections, the actual amount is also dramatically increasing. I'm talking about relative position, composition, I'm sorry. Relative composition is a change. Social welfare is increasing, okay? But I'm not saying the other areas are not decreasing. Also altogether increasing, but relatively speaking, social welfare spending is more increased, okay?
In 2016, the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency was formed based on the recommendations from the World Bank. And this organization or agency was to integrate or is to integrate and promote both the public and private initiatives. But because of the risk associated with the market, such as the increase in tax or taxes, mostly because of loans. We don't have like this, for instance, in Korea here, they have the Korean Development Bank, which supports industries, local industries. We don't have that one. So most of the loans people get is from commercial banks. And one of the demerits of these loans is that it promotes import. And once it promotes import, it leads to increase in these taxes. And when that is done, it will drive away the startup businesses or the startup SMEs. So my question is, I want you to please recommend or point out some strategies that we can implement as a nation, thinking of the people at the top. We recommend the strategies that we can adopt in order for us to increase our own source revenue to support the growth of this local content or local market amidst the potential risk in the local market. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. To frank with you, I don't know very well about other countries' situation. Only United States and Korea, that's all about it. Well, I'm not sure. First of all, I'm not sure about your local governments has the power, whether you have power finding new revenue source by your own. So can you creating the new tax items by the local government? First, my question about it. If you do not, and then you have to find other alternative sources. For example, like a non-tax revenue source, right? It's not easy, but in Korea, for example, rural counties is not easy to find a new revenue source at all because there is no much population there. They do not much driving. They don't have much need of a parking lot, right? And so on. Then it's not easy to find in revenue source. Then my second part is that, well, yes, in Korea, local government also they are trouble to make a spending decision, right? But at the same time, nowadays local government slowly recognize how to use those money more effective ways, such as recruiting businesses into their jurisdiction. Slowly, local governments spend quite large money on R&D as well. And they're providing R&D subsidies to the businesses as well. Okay, also recruiting the businesses, right? The kind of leverage effect. So I don't know your country, especially local government. In order to moving that stage, you should be local government has enough capacity in the human resources capacity and managerial capacity, right? And organizational capacity. So without the enough capacity to deal with those issues, that will be another trouble. Like in Korea, sometimes happening is like corruption issues and right, untransparency. Is that okay? Thank you.
I'm Danang from Indonesia. I'm interested how to decide the local budget from the central government, because in my opinion, maybe if the central budget allocated bigger allocation for the poorer area, maybe it will be good for the development that area. But in the other hand, if the central government didn't decide it based on the population, only by the poorer area, maybe it will impact only for the few people. If it is allocated for the bigger area, like the larger population area, it will impact for many people. But in contrast, mostly this area is already rich than the poorer area. How to decide this one? Thank you.
Of course, more money. If more money should be go the area with more population, right? Because there are more service demand and needs. But at the same time, public goods and public services is kind of member goods. Member goods means that it doesn't matter of where you live, your income. Everybody, if you are living in this country as citizen, then you should be guaranteed the minimum level of services, right? That's what we call merit good. So this is a political decision, I believe. Okay. For example, in Korea, my hometown actually really poor. I'm not poor, but it's rural areas. So only a few years ago, water supply system is built up. My hometown, my home village. Okay, only a few years ago. But as you know, in Korea, water supply system is almost 100%, right? It's almost 100% public pipelines. But that pipeline is only constructed a few years ago in my hometown, my home village. So, which means that they have the priority of the spending, I believe. Okay, the different stage of the development. Okay, you cannot spending, at the early stage of your development, economic development stage. You cannot spend the money for that to build up the pipelines for my home village, right? Huge, because from the city to my hometown, my home village is long way to pipelines. Only 70, 60 people, right, live there. So I think that is very much like depending on the developmental stage and also the political decisions. I'm not sure whether that is the answers for you. Yeah.
So I want to explore if in Korea there are these alternative mechanisms for citizens to actually ensure accountability.
Okay. Thank you. In order to secure the financial accountability, I think citizens' role and civic society role is I think so important. It's getting important in this country because, in the big city like Seoul metropolitan, we have the many civic organizations, right? NPOs and NGOs. They actually quite large number of the NGOs are carefully looking at the public spending about it, and they have impose the information about it. However, in the rural area in Korea are still same problems. When I talking about participatory budgeting system is informed citizens. Citizens are very well known about the situation. Also very, how can I say, like a citizenship, right? So if a citizen has a very strong citizenship, they actually willing to participate in the government, local governments, what's happening, what's going on, where's money come from, where money spent for, right? So in not only central government or local government's control is not enough at all. So citizens is getting important in that aspect, I think. Okay. Also in terms, there's regional disparities between cities and rural areas. If you look at the rural area in Korea, there are a lot of problems, I believe. yeah, I think it's my hometown. You know, from time to time I heard about it, but still the problems. But I think it's getting better, and yeah. Okay. All right. So just one last question, and then I'm gonna finish up this presentation.
Hello. Thank you, LOFA, and thank you, Professor, for your wonderful talk. I have many questions because I'm a tax lawyer in public finance, and I will make it simple. I come from Argentina, which is a federal country, so I will focus on some differences in those issues.
Sure.
I wanted to ask, from a citizen's perspective, is there a regulation that protects the citizen from double imposition? Because what I read on so many taxes are imposing a contribution on the same manifestation of wealth, so that would create some conflicts for me. And secondly, if there's conflict between the local government and the federal government and national government, is there a mechanism for resolving this issue, maybe through the justice system?
Oh, yeah. But there's issues. Usually, those taxes, local government, the central government is collected and give back to the local government. There is no, I think, conflict about it, because the central governments, they take all money and they give back to it. And also, provincial governments and metropolitan city governments, they're collecting local education taxes and they give back to education districts. Okay, so there is no the overlapping jurisdiction problems. I don't think so. Okay. Second of all, the negotiation about I can say between central governments and local governments. They have the governance system about talking about those issues. This is they have major level and mayor level, or they have from time to time the governance system they negotiated about it and so on. Yeah. Sometimes they're arguing to each other and they make their own voice, but that's the adjusting the final decisions. Yeah. I mean, thank you for so many questions about it. So it's time is almost there, and at the same time, my brain is getting out and. Another jet lag problems come up again. So anyway, okay, fiscal autonomy. I think fiscal autonomy is a necessary condition for local autonomy and self-government. I'm not sure sufficient condition, but that's true. Necessary condition. And how to secure all social revenues. We all talked about it. It's another issues. And regional disparities in the revenue capacity among the local governments. This is a serious problem because in Korea is population decreasing and many people want to live in metropolitan areas and big cities, and there are more regional disparities in revenue capacity in this country. And also how to improve the morality and skills of the political politicians and bureaucratic in this country. I think in your country as well. Back to 1991, in Korea it's actually become the democratic movement in 1987 democratized movement. And at the time, there like a national level agreement. We're gonna start to local autonomy in 1991, local election for councils, 1997, as 5 for local elections for the mayors and governors. But at the time, the central government politicians, central level politicians and bureaucrats, they don't believe local politicians and bureaucrats because they worry about corruption, they worry about like skills, they worry about their capacity, they don't believe at all. Right? That's why they want to they are reluctant to delegate the power to the local governments. So now it's slowly, but still I think local government, central government, so central government politicians and government officials, they don't believe local government that much, right? So I don't know, but But now I think local governments, when I met the local government politicians and government officials, still, yes, it's not enough. But at the same time, it's quite improved over time, over the years. Okay? But still there, how to improve the morality and skills of those people. And how to avoid, reduce problem, talk better politics. This is another big problem in this country. How to deal with the problem of moral hazard. So financial support from the central government is not free money. Is money come from my pocket, right? Yeah. So, and how to enhance the fiscal economy, we already talked about this one. Yeah. Especially citizens' control is getting important in this country. So, wow, you have so many like many different countries like South America, Africa, Asia, and Central Asia, probably Southeast Asia, and so on. So I'm so delighted to have my presentation here in LOFA. If you don't have more questions, I'm gonna finish my presentation. Okay, thanks so much.
The next lecture is about the PIM system, PIM. PIM stands for Public Investment Management, and Dr. Kim Jae-Young, the General Manager of Local Investment Assessment at LOFA, is an expert on this topic. So, if you have any question, feel free to ask him anything about PIM during the Q&A session after finishing the lecture. Let's once again give him a big round of applause.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your visiting LOFA today, and welcome all of you from University of Seoul and Seoul National University. My name is Kim Jae-Young, and I'm working as a general manager at LOFA, and I joined here 2022. Before joining LOFA, I worked at KDI PIMEC, you might heard about it, for 20 years in the field of public investment management and PPP project. And with Professor Park Hyun at the University of Seoul and Professor Go-Gil-gon at Seoul National University. At the time, two professors were my colleagues, close colleagues, and good mentors to me. So it's a great pleasure for me to have a chance of this presentation today to the students from both schools. And yes, the topic of my presentation is the introduction of local government PIM system. PIM means Public Investment Management, focusing on project appraisal and selection process. I think, are you familiar with the term PIM? Yeah, you might have already learned or you will learn about this subject in your coursework. My subject is almost the same, but by the way, what you have learned is maybe about the central government process. But in Korea, we have a little different PIM system for local government level. So today, I want to focus and introduce about PIM system, focusing on the local government level. Okay, let me start my presentation. This presentation consists of 5 chapters, from introduction to the implication of the system in Korea. This slide shows why we need to manage the public investment carefully about economic and social infrastructures. As you know well, infrastructure improves national economic growth and the quality of your life. Therefore, many countries, especially developing countries, are trying to provide infrastructure. By the way, most of infrastructure is provided by public sector, including PPP, right? Is it right in your countries? Yeah. And why does public sector provide infrastructure, not private sector? As you know, in economic theory, it's because of the market failure. There is a market failure problem in the supply of infrastructure. So, but I'm not going to discuss about market failure today. I want to focus on the two different causes. The first is poke-barrel politics, and the second is optimism bias. Professor Bay already mentioned about poke-barrel bias, and optimism bias is another thing. Have you ever heard about optimism bias? It's a tendency to overestimate the benefit or demand of the project and underestimate the cost of the project to implement the project. Regarding to the optimism bias, Bent Flevier, one of the most famous research about this subject, he studied and he found cost overruns and demand overestimations are very common problems in large-scale projects around the world. And the bankruptcy of Yubari City in Japan in 2007 is a kind of well-known case that when local government invest in a project without a careful consideration of feasibility study, it can lead to a serious budget waste and even bankruptcy. In Korea, we also have experienced poke-barrel politics and optimism bias problems. And this slide shows our response to those issues in the late 1990s. But as I will leave this part in later, let me skip this slide. Okay, the next is why we need to build and improve the PIM system. Yeah, have you ever seen these figures? This figure is from the study of IMF in 2019. The IMF assessed the PIM system for countries and scored 15 key processes from planning to implementation and monitoring steps. The outer blue line is the score of the institutional design, and the inner red line is the score of effectiveness. It means the practical implementation. You can see the practical implementation score is much lower than the institutional design. It means there is room to improve when you about the implementation, practical implementation in PIM system. Even though you established the institutional designs well, but there is some room to improve when you implement and conduct the PIM system. And which one is lowest? You can see the number 4, project appraisal, and 10, project selection step is the lowest. Yeah. It means we need to focus and improve this part, these steps most. This slide is also from the IMF study, and it shows losses from poor infrastructure governance. According to the study by the IMF, low-income development countries, they lose about 40% of their investment loss returns. It's because of the inefficiencies in their PIM system. Even advanced economies, they also lose about 13% of investment returns. Yes, it's one of the reasons why we need to build and we should build and improve a sound and good governance for project management. Yeah, according to the IMF study, there is a lot of room for improvement in the project appraisal and project selection, I told you before. Based on this background, I believe that our institutional design and practical experience about PIM system could be a valuable benchmark for developing countries and you. Maybe this is one of the reasons why some of you choose Korea as your master degree study, right? Yeah. Because our case is one of the best practice in the world. Okay, chapter 2 is institutionalization and development of PIM system in Korea. I summarize our history of the system since the 1960s, and shortly, there are three key points. The first is that we didn't have enough domestic capacity at first in 1960s, so we initiated PIM system with the support of international organizations such as World Bank at first. And the second is that the budget authority and the line ministry competed with each other to take the ownership of PIM system, particularly about the project appraisal and project selection process. In Korea, budget authority have more power than line ministry. So in Korea, budget authority have the ownership of PIM system. But I think for developing countries, it's already different, right? Yeah, and the third is the PFS system. I think you already heard about it. Introduced in 1999 for central government project. PFS has become a notable milestone as an ex-ante project appraisal process. This slide shows the expansion of ex-ante project appraisal process in Korea. Based on the success of the PFS in 1999, the type of the project expanded to IT, R&D, and social welfare project. And the scope of the project also expanded from central government project to public and private partnership project in 2005 and state-owned enterprise project in 2011 and local government project in 2014. There is no shortcut to bypass any kind of ex-ante project appraisal system nowadays. We build a comprehensive and integrated PIM system. Do you have any question about this slide? Okay, this slide shows the more detail about the feasibility study for local government project. It's already different from central government to PFS system. We introduced this feasibility study for local government project in 2014 because there are some issues. At the time, there was no designated feasibility study agency like KDI PMAC for PFS. Each local government conducted PFS independently. So some of local government, they didn't conduct feasibility study at all. And also, many of the government applied different criteria and methodologies for each project while they study the feasibility of the project. To address this problem, we established the first feasibility study agency, like KDI PMAC, REMAC in 2014, and LOMAC, my company, was designated as a second feasibility study agency in LOFA in 2021. Yeah. LOFA is one of the designated feasibility study agency for local government feasibility study project. Chapter 3 is about the project appraisal and selection system for local government project. This diagram shows the process of local government project in Korea from planning to budgeting and implementing. Feasibility study is to investigate the social economic impact and political and policy analysis of the project. And investment appraisal is to decide whether to approve the project or not. It's a kind of project screening stage. Investor appraisal is corresponds to the project screening process. At the IMF, World Bank, and IMF's classification. It corresponds to this project selection steps. This slide shows the type of project we classify for local government project selection. In Korea, we classify local government projects into 6 types for project screening process. The first is general investment project, it's most popular. And the second is culture and sport facilities. And third is event project, exhibition halls, government buildings, and guarantees for investment. It's because the reason why we classify this type is the request document and screening authorities, it differs depending on the project type and funding source. And we also include these government guarantees in public investment category because even though it doesn't require any budget at first, but these guarantees may result in fiscal burden in the future if the project collapses or there occurs some problems. It's not only in Korea. As you see in these figures, World Bank also included this type of guarantees into public investment category. And this slide is about the project screening authorities. At first, each local government, they screen the project by themselves. They did a self-project appraisal system, but since 1995, a local government project have divided into 2 groups. The one is self-screening, and another is the higher level authority commission screening. It depends on the type and scale of the project. For smaller project, local government screen the project by themselves, but the large-scale project, usually higher level authority screen the project of their local government. And this is the project screening criteria. We consider quantitative and qualitative factors, and the criteria are predefined by regulations and feasibility study manuals. When local governments submit the project screening request documents, the committee members check the necessity and feasibility of the project for each evaluation factor, like this. And this slide shows project screening result. From 2017 to 2021, the MOIS, Ministry of Interior and Safety, they reviewed about 470 projects annually, and about 72% of the projects were approved as feasible for implementation. About 30% of the project was approved as non-feasible. Chapter 4 is about the feasibility study of local government project. This slide shows the basic process of the study. Each local government, they submit the feasibility study request to higher level authorities, and MOIS, Ministry of Interior and Safety, they collect all of these requests. And then MOIS requests the feasibility study to a designated agency, such as LOMEC and LIMEC, to conduct the feasibility study. And then LOMEC and LIMEC, feasibility study agency, they review the details of the project plan and decide whether to launch the project, to start the feasibility study or not. If the details of the project plan are not sufficient and there are something need to correct or improve, the feasibility study request may be rejected and should submit again later. After the study is completed, the final report is submitted to MOIS and to the local government. Feasibility study reports are used as a basic reference during the project screening system. At this time, this process. This slide shows the request form for the feasibility study. It's for local government who should prepare a project overview, cost calculation, details, and attachment documents carefully. Project overview include purpose and history of the project, and sketch plans such as project site location, project scale, cost, and funding plans. If the these contents and details of this document is insufficient, a feasibility study request may be rejected. This is the main contents while we study during the feasibility study. I think it might be almost the same in other countries. We estimate the demand and cost of the project first, and then we analyze economic and financial impact, and finally we analyze political and policy analysis. Yeah. Okay. Next is the comparison of feasibility study and PFS, preliminary feasibility study. In Korea, we have two different ex-ante project appraisal system, FS under the Local Finance Act and PFS under the National Finance Act. The former, FS, is for local government project, and the latter, PFS, is for central government project. Also, the names are different, but the contents and the methodologies are almost the same. But the only difference is whether the report includes the overall feasibility of the project or not. In PFS, have you ever heard about AHP score? Yeah. Professor Park and Professor Go, they introduced AHP methodology into PFS system in 2001 in KDI. Yeah. So you might already heard about AHP from them. In PFS, the overall feasibility of the project is explicitly presented in the report through AHP score. If the score is higher than 0.5, it means it's feasible to implement the project. However, in feasibility study, we just describe the cost and demand estimate and economic impact. We didn't judge is need to implement the project or not. It depends on the committee. It's the role of investment appraisal committee who reviews the report and decide whether to approve the project or not. So it's divided into two groups. For PFS, it's included in the report, but in local government project, the judgment part is divided from the report. Of course, I think it's hard to say which is better because each system has its pros and cons. While I was studying in KDI, I thought HP is a good system, but after I joined here, I thought it's another good way to, one of the good systems to judge the project because both has pros and cons. Yeah. If you have any question about this, okay, let's talk about this in the later. Okay, lastly, I'd like to share our experience and implication with you. The first is the establishment of an integrated PIM system. The PFS was a successful ex-ante project appraisal process, as well as a stepping stone of integrated PIM system. And the role of this ex-ante process expanded into midterm evaluation and post-evaluation. And the second is an expansion of the project type and scope of the PIM system. I already mentioned about it before. Yeah, the third implication is the change in the ownership of project appraiser. PFS is controlled by budget authority, as I mentioned already, and conducted by an independent agency such as KDI PIM. After we introduced PFS in 1999, the percentage of the project found to be feasible was only 47%. These results are quite remarkable compared to the previous feasibility study conducted by line ministries at the time. Among 33 projects, only one project was found non-feasible at the time. 32 projects was found to feasible. So you can get some lessons that it's very important to establish a good governance and to enhance the neutrality and objectivity of the PIM system. Okay, the first implication is the designation of a specialized feasibility study organization. Currently, the PIM system is managed by the central government, such as MOEF, Ministry of Economic and Finance, and MOIS, but the ex-ante feasibility study is conducted by independent organizations, such as our LOMEC and KDI PIMEC. These independent agencies are trying to enhance the objectivity and transparency of the feasibility study. And the last implication is the database and models for project appraisal. As you know, the more reliable the data, the more accurate result you can get, you can have. So once sound governance is established, I think the next step is to develop a database and models to increase the accuracy of the result. This is an example of traffic count data to check transport demand analysis. This slide shows the three patterns, origin to and destination data. It shows how many people move from one point to another place. To make this database, we need to survey people's movement. We have started to build this database since 1998 for nationwide. And for Seoul metropolitan area, it might be early 1990s. And this is an example of traffic count data to check the accuracy of travel demand model. We have started to investigate the traffic count every 5 to 10 kilometers for main highway. We have started to build this database since 1955, but I think it's expanded from 1980s. So far, it required a lot of budget and time to build this kind of database. However, nowadays, we can get a database more easily using a big data, like mobile phone data. Let me share some videos. This video shows the trip movement to Seoul CBD area for 24 hours. In the morning peak, people move into CBD area, and in afternoon, people move out to residential area. It's a kind of trip pattern database created using your mobile phone data from SK Telecom. Okay, this is all I have prepared, and thank you for your listening for a long time. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for your wonderful talk. While it's very detailed, I will try to ask you a question that is not on the slides. For example, I know that Korea on the national level and both on the local level have a lot of strategic objectives for development of the regions. So when you have to do the feasibility study of infrastructure investment, it's not only the economical benefit, I mean, it's the economical benefit that you have to consider, because maybe the return rate is not that big, but it's a strategic investment in a certain area. how do you take that into consideration? What legal limitations or political decisions have been made that to ponder those things that are a bit more subjective and a bit more political than technical?
네, 좋은 질문 감사드리고요. 그 AHP라는 것을 여러분들이 이제 그 배웠거나 배우게 되면 그 고려하는 항목들이 경제적 타당성 외에 정책적인 부분들이 이제 포함이 되게 됩니다. 그래서 과거에는 경제적 타당성이 50% 이상 높았다면 현재는 경제적 타당성 비중이 이제 50% 이하가 안 되는 경우가 많고, 그 다음에 특히나 지방부 사업에 있어서 로컬 지역에 위치한 사업에 있어서는 경제성보다는 정책적 그 효과에 대한 고려를 더 많이 하고요. 이런 평가 항목에 대해서는 그 법적인 건 아니지만 매뉴얼, 가이드라인에 지침화해서 우리가 그걸 고려하고 있고, 여기 중앙정부 PFS for Central Government나 우리 FS for Local Government 모두 레걸 베이시스라든지 국가 상위계획과의 어떤 연관성이라든지 장기계획과의 연관성, 그리고 이게 사업이 얼마나 이런 정책적으로 그 필요성이 있느냐, 그다음에 주민들이 얼마나 원하느냐, 이런 부분들이 사실 숫자로 나타내지는 못하지만 우리가 정책적으로 그 판단에 고려하는 부분들입니다. 그리고 아까 AHP를 하면서 그러니까 FS와 PFS를 비교하면서 프로스 앤 콘스가 있다고 말씀드렸는데, PFS에서 AHP를 하면 이 Financial and Economic에 대한 어떤 정량적인 결과에 많이 영향을 받기가 쉽습니다. 하지만 우리 지방정부, 로컬 거버먼트에 대한 FS에서는 이런 정량적인 지표도 중요하지만 사실 이 사업의 필요성이라든지 다른 정성적인 지표들이 많이 고려되고 있는 측면이 있습니다.
오늘 참석해주신 많은 그 국가에서 오신 그 분들이 이제 각 국가 대표라는 관점에서 한국처럼 그렇게 그 어떤 재정부의 어떤 그 권한이 좀 큰 사례들이 있는지, 아니면 그 각 국가들별로 어떤 그 재정부의 그 위상이 어느 정도인지를 한번 궁금해서 한번 여쭤보겠습니다.
So my name is John, and I'm sharing the experience from Ghana. So years back, it hasn't been like that. The line ministries used to do project feasibility on themselves, but on that point, we were finding that said that the primary factor was that these line ministries were very subjective. Most of the time, they from their plans and programs, their activities they want to implement, they will actually say that this is feasible and all that. So based on that, the Ministry of Finance now has that, they conducted a study, and they came out with that, finding that ministries actually favor the projects that they actually want to implement. And at the end of the day, they fair every project, this is feasible and all that. So now, we have, based on the implementation of our PFM Act, we are also now enforcing this PIM, ensuring that the Ministry of Finance actually has that power to actually do project feasibility for all projects. So in the case of Ghana, it's really working, and the power actually lies with the Ministry of Finance. Thank you.
하여튼 좋은 경험에 대한 공유 감사드리고, 사실 작년에 고길근 교수님이랑 여러분 디벨로핑 컨트리에 대한 제도를 좀 연구를 했었는데, 그때 서울대학교에서 같이 참여해 주신 분이 계시다면 특별히 감사하다는 말씀을 마지막으로 드리고 싶고요. 캄보디아로부터 뭐 파키스탄까지 한 13분이 참여해 주셨던데 감사하다는 말씀 한 번 더 드리고 싶고, 오늘 이 자리에 참석해 주셔서 감사합니다.